My name is Melanie Nichols, but I publish under my initials, M.A. Nichols, and I, of course, am an indie author. I know, big shocker with the name of the class, but I'm very, very, very excited to talk to you today about this. I started indie publishing in September of 2016, so it's been about 2.5 years, and I still am in the new, early phases of my career, but in that 2.5 years, I've published 8 novels and 3 novellas, spanning 3 separate series in various genres, and I have seen a lot of course, failures and a lot of successes. And I'm excited to share some of the lessons that I have learned, because I knew way before I ever wanted to publish, or way before I ever published, that I wanted to go the indie route. And I spent a lot of time educating myself, reading books. Can't tell you how many hours of podcasts I listened to. I did as much work as I could before I ever hit publish to try and make sure that I was prepared as possible for what indie publishing was and what I needed to do to be successful in indie publishing. And I can tell you right now, even with all of that preparation, I still made a lot of mistakes. And I've made a lot of missteps in my career. And I wanted to share some of the things that, frankly, I don't hear a lot of people talk about. I'm not going to talk about how to go about indie publishing. I'm not going to go into a lot of the nitty-gritty details about marketing and such. But I'm going to talk about some of the big picture things that I have had to learn on my own because no one else told me. Or I had to just kind of figure out and make the mistakes on my own. So feel free at any point, if you have questions, just put that hand up there, and because I love questions, and I love getting into little discussions about this. I don't have a projector for my presentation, but I have a website. If you don't feel comfortable asking a question in class, either feel free to come talk to me afterwards, or go to my website, www.ma-nichols.com, and you can just email me through there. I love getting emails. I love helping out newbie indie authors and sharing my lessons so that hopefully you guys can avoid all the stupid mistakes that I have made. The first thing, when I started preparing for this presentation, the first thing that came to my mind when I thought about stupid mistakes that I made, that I hope that you guys can avoid, is when it comes to actually going for publishing in the first place. I don't know about you, and I don't know if you've already published or you're in the pre-publishing phase or if you're in the early stages of your career, but I think one of the hardest boundaries to get over is that fear of publishing. And one of the biggest mistakes that I feel like I made with my career is not publishing sooner and not going for it. There is this tendency to want to wait until your book is perfect. I remember I was in the eternal editor phase for many, many years before I ever hit publish. And I remember actually having the goal that I was going to sit down and read through my book and not find any mistakes before I would publish. That is insane. I'm going to tell you right now, that is just insane. No book is perfect, and I had to learn that and accept that. Even traditionally published books that go through years of editing and really, really fancy, expensive editors, they still have plot holes, character inconsistencies, even typos, grammatical errors. And even if you do polish it up to the point where it is about as perfect as it can be, you're still going to go back and read it later and find things you wish you'd done differently. In fact, I just read an interview with an author that I just adore, who I think is an amazing author, who said that she went back and read one of her earlier books and couldn't get past page 2 because she found too many errors and mistakes. And so the fact is if you're looking for your book to be perfect before you publish, it won't happen. And frankly, the best thing you can do for yourself is to go and take the leap. Make the choice to go for it, because honestly, in the 2.5 years since I've published, I have learned so much more about writing good books and how to edit those books and how to make them better than I did in the 5 years before that I spent preparing for publishing. And it's kind of a trial by fire thing, and it's really terrifying. But I guarantee you, no matter how much work you put into it, there will be problems, there will be errors, so stop waiting for your book to be perfect. And something that I had to learn also that I honestly love about indie publishing is that indie publishing is a fluid thing. hitting publish on your book is not the end of the process. At any point you find an error, you can actually make the change, upload a new copy of your book, and all your new readers will have that new book. And it's actually a very common thing for indie authors to do. Excuse me. That a lot of indie authors go back and they'll put up their books, and they may get feedback that they didn't get during the critique phase of their editing process, and they'll go back and change it. For example, with my first book that I published, that, like I said, I was in the internal editor phase for a long time. I started writing in 2004. I didn't publish it till 2016. Okay, so, you know, that's just bad. Don't do that. Anyway, and I had gone through all the hoops. I'd done all the editing. I'd gotten it critiqued, professionally edited, and then I put it out there, and I started getting feedback from people. Not every reader, but I started seeing a pattern where people were saying, I really like the story, but it got a little slow in the middle. And so I went back and read through it, and since that time that I published, I'd already written a book and a novella. I'd done some more writing. I'd learned and grown as an author, and I went back and realized I had a lot of bloated language. The story was sound, the characters were sound, but I spent too much time repeating myself or trying to be way more flowery than you need to. I think a lot of newbie authors want to be way more artsy-fartsy than they really need to. I cut out 10,000 words of my book. Didn't change anything about the story or the characters. I simply tightened up the language. And I republished it, and I don't get that feedback from people as much anymore. I mean, there's always people who are not going to like your book, but I don't get that back as much. And in fact, every single book I've published, with the exception of the last two, because I've gotten better at editing and publishing, I've gone back and updated and changed later. So don't be afraid that hitting publish is the end of the journey. It's not. I guarantee you'll go back. It's okay to change it. That's a very common thing among indie authors. Now, I will say, though, I'm not saying you shouldn't try. You definitely need to get it edited. You definitely need to get it critiqued. Try your best to make it a good book, but then let go of the fear. Take the leap and go and publish, because I really wish I could go back and slap Melanie 5 years ago and tell her to just go for it, because I honestly look back at it and think of all the wasted years I had of just spinning my wheels and getting stuck in that eternal editing phase. And it's so easy to get stuck in that. And I can't tell you how many times I talk to wannabe indie authors who almost always say, oh, I can't wait to publish, but. And that but is usually, my book isn't ready yet. And don't let that hold you back, because you can always fix it later. Honestly, you can always fix it later. That's okay. Now, some of the biggest mistakes that I do see, both in my own career and with other indie authors, revolves around the business side of indie publishing. A lot of indie authors don't understand when they start into indie publishing that it is an industry. It is a business. You create those books because you like the art side, right? You like creating the worlds, you like writing the stories. That's great. The minute you try to sell that art, you are no longer an artist, you are an entrepreneur. You are a business person. And that is a completely different skill set and a completely different mentality. And I think most indie authors fail in this aspect of their career. It's the business side, because it is it's completely different. And honestly, your success will completely be, your success as an indie author is contingent on how you handle the business side of things. Because I've read books that were amazing that don't do well because the author isn't handling the business side, the marketing, all that aspect of the publishing side of it. And I've read books that frankly are just awful by authors who are very popular because they know how to work the business side. They know how to market. They know how to work that. And so it is really important to understand that. And the first big mistakes that I made with my business. Seriously, this is like a presentation just airing out all my really embarrassing stories. But please, learn from me. Don't do these. And, but the first thing I see, I have a struggle with, and frankly, I see over and over and over with other indie authors, is getting fixated on sales and forgetting about your income. Now, people often think of those as synonymous, especially people who don't have a business background. Sales and income are two different things. you have to have sales to get income, of course. Sales is how you get income. That's great. But you can have sales and not have income. And let me tell you, it is really easy to get focused on chasing after sales and wanting to get your sales higher and higher and higher, thinking, oh, well, if I have high sales, I'm going to have higher income. That is not always the case. I tell you, it is not always the case. I feel like I just need to just stand up here. Please, just believe me. You can look at all my bank statements if you like, but one of the things is that sales are easy to get distracted by because it brings such validation. I can't tell you the high you get off of watching your sales dashboard. I actually have to stop myself from checking it about every hour to like anytime I kind of stop and I don't have anything to do, I usually pull out my phone and I start checking my stats because it is so fun to watch those new sales pile up every day. And it is really addicting. And then the minute I have a day where my sales start going down, it's really easy to then sit there and think, oh no, I need to throw more money into my marketing. I need to recover this. I'm losing money. And in the end, I'm spending more money than I should to gain sales. And so, because these sales are so, like I said, they bring validation, and they are actually probably the most common benchmark used for people that people use to mark whether or not they're successful. I mean, bestseller lists are all based on sales, not income. And so it's really easy to get in that mindset that I need higher sales, I need higher sales. But there are definitely times when that's not a good thing necessarily. For example, with my historical romance, I write both in fantasy and various subgenres, and then I write historical romance. My book was doing fairly well, and I wanted to start playing around with the price of my book. And that's really scary when you want to raise the price of your book, because you always see a decrease in your sales when you raise the price, and that's really scary. However, raising the price gets you more income per book, and so when I raised the price, I did see a decrease in sales, but my net income, my revenue that I was getting off of it increased, so I was making more money off of less books. And so it's very easy to think that sales are the all-important thing, but it's not always, especially because, well, there are two types of income. Again, I'm talking to people as if you don't know anything about business, so please excuse me if I'm going really basic, but there's two types of income. There's net income and gross income. Gross income is the revenue that you make off your books. At the end of every month, Amazon deposits a check into my bank account. That's my gross income. That's my revenue. That's what I've made off of my books. However, the really important thing you need to focus on is your net income. Net income takes into account all the money you spent to get that gross income. So, all my marketing campaigns, the money I spend on my website, the money I spend coming to these conferences, all those kind of things, I have to subtract them out of my gross income, and that net income is the profit. That's the money you're actually putting into your pocket. And the trick is, you may have gross income, but if your expenses are higher than your gross income, you are now paying people to read your books. And I learned this, again, the hard way. It's very common to do promotions for books where you mark them down on sale for like 99 cents or give them away for free. And in the first 2 years of my publishing career, I did 6 separate promotions for my fantasy books. And through those 6 promotions, I sold about 170 books, and which isn't bad for a new author who's still trying to get a name for themselves. From those 170 books, my gross income was $120, which again, not bad, figuring that most of those books were priced at 99 cents, which means I'm only making about 60 to 70 cents max on each book. But I'm including books that say someone saw my sale, came to my Amazon page, and then bought other books. That happens a lot, where they see the sale, they're like, ooh, and then they find other books they like, they purchase those, and so, I made more on average, more money than that 60 cents a book. Anyway, however, in order to get people to know about my promotion, I was really obsessed with wanting to make sure that my promotion had a lot of sales, tons of sales. And so I spent 20 bucks here on an email promotion. I spent 50 bucks here on Facebook promotions, on Amazon ads, and all these little $20 to $50 things that I did added up very quickly. And I just recently sat down, and for this presentation I wanted to give the actual numbers, so I sat down and looked at all of the money I've spent on these, and I realized that my net income for these 6 promotions was negative $500. I paid $3 a book for people to read my book. I would have made more money simply giving them away for free and just putting it up for free. And my problem was that I was so fixated on those sales. And since then, I've changed that perspective. And I did a promotion recently where I was very careful about what my expenses were. I kept a very firm eye on that. And I actually had a promotion that made me money. Not a ton, because promotions are really more about gaining new readers, but you really don't want to be losing $500. I'm never going to make that back on those promotions. Now, when I started, yeah, it took me a while to figure out how much of a mess I was making of my expenses and finances, until I was about $9,000 in debt. Now, I looked at this as a business. It's a new business. New businesses don't make money in the first 2 years. However, you still need to be careful about not letting your expenses run out of control. I spent so much money, and I was focused so much on trying to get sales and building this business that I did let these expenses get out of control. And so when I finally realized, oh my gosh, I'm running myself into the poorhouse and I'm hemorrhaging money, I set a budget. That is a really important thing, especially when you are starting out. You know how much you can afford to put into your business. You know, put as much as you can, but set a budget for yourself. Make sure that you are not spending more than you can. Credit cards are not fun to live off of. Just saying, personal experience there. With that, having good records. I'll put a quick plug in. If you don't know how to use Excel or Google Sheets or some sort of spreadsheet program, it's really important to learn, because it's one of the best ways to keep track of your expenses and your income. Every good business knows where their cash flow is going. You know exactly how much money you're spending. You know exactly how much money is coming in. And the better records you keep and the more detailed, the more you can look at it and say, well, I'm spending this kind of money on a very specific type of marketing that is actually making me a lot more money. And this is you can figure out where you spend your money the best, where it's going to make you the most return on investment, where it's going to be the most profitable. And frankly, it helps because then you can cut down expenses, because there's a lot of times that you're spending money just to spend money and it's not actually bringing you in sales. My fantasy books in the last couple years, I've cut back significantly on marketing. I haven't seen any difference in my sales. So obviously I was spending a lot of money in the wrong places, because I started looking at really paying attention to my expenses and my cash flow. I've been able to pare back my expenses and make my money work for me better than it was before. And I am no longer paying people to read my book. It's just way, way better. Trust me, it's the better way to run a business, not losing money. I know that's a shocker, but it surprises me how little I hear about this kind of stuff talked about among the indie community. And I will say one final thing that I am a firm believer in is review those records regularly. I put a little a notification on my calendar. It pops up every Tuesday morning is my budget morning. I sit down and I go through all of my expenses, all my income. I go through all my spreadsheets so that I am never surprised by a really big credit card bill at the end of the month. I am never surprised by how much money certain things are losing or how much they're making. I know exactly at any given point where my cash is and what I'm doing with it. And on top of that, when you do it every week, it's really not a big deal. It takes like 10 minutes. I used to do it once every month or 2 months, and then it takes an hour, and nobody wants to do that, so you put it off, and meanwhile, you don't have a clue what your money is actually doing for you, and if you're making money or losing money. Now, yes?
That being said, do you have any suggestions for what 1 or 2 good promotions would be effective?
I will get to marketing in just a second. That's a really tricky topic, and I wish I could talk more about it. Marketing is kind of a black hole of, more of a rabbit hole. You fall down it and it just keeps going. Yes?
3 quick suggestions. Book Barbarian and BookBub are the only book marketing sites I have ever done better than break even on. Almost all the rest I've lost money on. The third thing is build your mailing list.
Okay. Well, honestly, I will disagree with you, at least on the first one, but I'm going to get to that in a second with marketing. I will say, though, even as much as I'm trying to put the fear of God in you about watching your expenses and your finances, seriously, it's so easy to let them get out of control. You are still going to need to take risks. You're going to have losses. With a new business, you're going to lose money, and that's okay, because you have to learn what works and doesn't work. And sometimes the only way you can do that is by losing some money. The key to this is keeping a tight rein on it so that you're not, like I say, hemorrhaging money, that you're not spending more than you can afford, that you're not wondering about where you're going to get your money for food or living off top ramen or mac and cheese. And no, I'm not actually talking from personal experience. You know, it's really easy to do that. So don't be afraid of having some losses, but just be careful, because if you are, you can control those losses and minimize them too. And frankly, the more control and more organization you have with it, the more you have successes and the less losses you tend to have. Now, marketing. That was what I wanted to talk about next. And marketing is tricky. And I was trying to think about what to share with marketing on this. Honestly, I don't know that there's anything I can say about what you should and shouldn't do with marketing. Newsletter lists are really great to use. But even still, every genre is different. Like I said, I publish in, I have a young adult contemporary fantasy series. I have an adult fairy tale satire series that's kind of Princess Bride meets Once Upon a Time. And I also write in Regency romance. Those three, even though two of them are fantasies, all three of them have nothing to do with each other. They're all different audiences. And I can tell you they each market differently. What works for one does not work for another. And even within those similar genres, each author is different. What works for one author is not going to work for another one. And even within a specific author, I have books that are in the same genre that market completely differently. So honestly, there are the hard and fast rules about marketing. I wish I could give you the magic wand that would tell you exactly how to market, but the fact is I have found that the more often that authors, especially indie authors, indie authors, we love sharing our what we've learned. We love helping each other, but I find that a lot of indie authors like to speak in black and white terms, like this works or this doesn't work. And I found that the more that someone talks in absolutes, the less right they tend to be, because some of the greatest successes I've had have been from things that people have told me would not work. Like I've been told, do not write multiple genres under the same name. I was told, absolutely, you need to use pseudonyms. It is the worst thing. It will ruin your brand. It will ruin the world. You will never be an author. You know, I mean, seriously, like hellfire raining from the sky. Life was going to be over as we know it if I did that. And honestly, I have actually seen my other books, my romances ones are the ones that are doing the best. I've seen my fantasy books double in sales, and with me spending less on marketing. And a lot of that is because even though other people, for some reason, believe that it doesn't work, believe it or not, people like reading multiple genres. And my fans of my romances are going over and reading my fantasy books. If I had listened to those people, I would be missing out on sales, and I know that I'm pretty sure these romance readers are only picking up my fantasy books because they already like me. I've built a brand with them, I've built trust, and it's made my fantasy books so much easier to market. And then I've had other times where people have told me, oh, absolutely, do this and it will work. And it has been some of the worst advice I've ever gotten. There is a guy that's considered like the guru of Amazon ads, and I read through his book. Wasn't really sure about it, but I heard so many people say, this is the only way to do Amazon ads. If you do this, you will have success. I followed his advice and had the worst ads, return on investment, and lost tons of money. It was awful. I mean, like just a train wreck. And so just be careful. Listen to advice, get opinions from people. It's always good to ask about what works and what doesn't work. And if you want to talk a little bit more about some of the things that I've seen, we can talk about that later. Yes. But take it all with a grain of salt, really quick. What were successful promotions I've done? Honestly, Amazon ads have worked really great for me. I know a lot of people don't have success with them, So it's really a hit and miss thing, but I've had, and it's funny because I've had a lot of success with certain of my books, but not other ones. I've never found, Facebook ads don't work for me. I know a lot of people who do, but I've never had them work. Email marketing does work to a degree. It's hit and miss, but even each email marketing newsletter that you can market to, it varies. Like one time I'll have great success, the next time I'll use the same book and it won't work. And so honestly, even within my own marketing scheme, I don't know that I've actually found any tried and true things that work. I do like newsletter lists, but even then, be careful because like building, a lot of authors recommend using newsletter building sites, like where you pay money to get people added to your news list. I have not found that to be helpful at all. Some people do. Honestly, for me, it's just lost me a lot of money and paying for those sites, and none of those people buy my books. So it's hard to it's hard to say it. I hate even saying, well, this will work, because it's worked for me, and it's still hit and miss, even with within my own books and my own genres. It really is. Marketing is this big, I said it before, rabbit hole, that there are so many different options, there's so many different things you can do. For example, for me, my website is a huge thing that I've done, and I'm a huge believer in websites. Facebook, presence, social media, that kind of stuff hasn't worked for me so well. Goodreads has been a really great place for me, but it isn't for other people. Honestly, it's just a lot of experimentation, and even with each book, it's a constantly changing and evolving thing. But frankly, in the end, if I had to give you one piece of advice about the best marketing you can do, it's write the next book. That is something I actually have heard a lot of indie authors say, and I fully believe it, because the more books you have out there, the easier it is to market, the more profitable your marketing tends to be. And frankly, the more books you have out there, the easier it is to find new readers, because something you write might appeal to them. And the more options you have, the easier it is to grab onto them. And I certainly have seen a huge difference between marketing one book versus marketing my 8 books. Yes?
So you mentioned that you were writing for 2.5 years, and then you wrote 8 books in 2.5 years.
Yes.
Can you talk on how to write consistently, daily writing, the writing habit, and basically how you basically churned out that many books in such a short time?
Honestly, a lot of that is organization. I actually put in a plug for, I'm teaching a class on Saturday about obsessive outlining, because I am an obsessive outliner. I take about a month to spend just working on outlining, and that has helped me. The better my outline, the more detailed my outline, the faster I can write. Mm-hmm. And I can go into that in that class. I don't want to say you need to go to it, because it will be amazing, but there you go. Honestly, organization, setting yourself deadlines is really important. I have a goal that I publish every 3 months. And I have a spreadsheet that has every single step I need to do for each book. Like, have I mentioned I'm obsessive and organized? That's coming out here. But each book, I have all these different steps that I need to know, everything from first draft to send it to the editor, to design the book cover, the print book cover, do the blurb, email all my newsletter. I mean, like anything I possibly need to do for that book, and each one of them has a date that I need to start working on that. And so calendars are your friend, organizers are your friend. And honestly, just learning how to work on multiple projects at the same time, because I'm not working on one book at a time. I'm usually working on about 4 or 5 stories all at the same time. I'm usually outlining or brainstorming one, writing on another, editing a third, and then usually pre-publishing phase on the 4th, or say like I just released an audiobook, and all that kind of stuff. So it's learning to balance all that. Sorry, I had a hand way back there. That's a brief overview, talking a mile a minute. I'm sorry. I start getting excited and everything, and I start talking really, really fast. Anyway, yes?
Okay, I think I read the same book you did with the AMS ads and had exactly the same experience.
There you go, yeah.
I have a quick comment. This is a rule of thumb that I have learned. When someone is giving you marketing advice, and they are a guru who is well known in the field, especially if they have a best-selling book in the field, if it's something that's not a zero-sum game, listen to them. If it's something that is a zero-sum game, such such as paid advertising that is cost per click and works on a bid model, do not listen to them because everybody else in the world has read that book and will be doing the same thing, and the prices have skyrocketed.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. I thought you said, yeah.
You want to ask a question?
No, there wasn't a question there, so yeah.
I'm wondering, you were talking about you worked on several different books and stories.
Yeah.
Research has shown that multitasking is not effective. So if that is the case, what do you do to make multitasking successful?
Well, and with multitasking, when people are usually talking about multitasking, they're talking about working on 3 things at the exact same time. Like, you know, I don't work on editing my book while listening to the audiobook of another book. I basically break down my day, and I usually spend the first 2 hours writing, and then I take lunch, and then I work the second 2 hours editing, and then the next 2 hours working on a separate project. It's more just, instead of spending all my time working on one individual project, I just break it up throughout the day, and then I shift gears to a new project. And honestly, for me, it works really well because I like doing multiple things. Like, I don't like having just one thing I'm working on at a time, and it gives me a little variety throughout the day.
So, I'm sorry if I'm asking questions here, but your brain is working here, writing, and you're doing these other things, so your brain is in a different mode. And then you've got scheduled over here more writing for a separate book. To me, that seems like multitasking in the brain, you know, here. I'm wondering how you can go from this book to this book in a matter of 3 or 4 hours.
For me, I guess I can see where you're coming from. Like, for me, I can't write on 2 separate books at the same time. I can only actively write on one, and I only actively edit on one book at a time. That works for me. But I like keeping separate. Otherwise, I do mix up the story some. You know, sometimes it's a matter of simply taking a break, walking away, giving yourself 10-15 minutes to decompress, shift modes. And frankly, for me, it changes all the time of how my work schedule and how I balance it all out. And so you have to kind of find what works for you. And for me, I can't, like, I know authors who were writing on 3 or 4 books at the same time. That doesn't work for me. But for some reason, my brain can brainstorm on one, and outline one book and then write on another one, and it doesn't mix it up. So, yes?
As a fellow obsessive organizer, can you tell us a little bit about what methods you use to keep track of things? Do you do lists? Do you have programs, software? How do you do that? I
am a spreadsheet fanatic. I love spreadsheets, and I use Google Docs to keep it all there because I actually still have a day job, so I'm bouncing between multiple computers throughout the day. So I like having Google Drive so I can sync everything up. I do have, like I said, a writing schedule where I keep all my deadlines for all the different phases of my books that I need to get through. I also, every Monday when I sit down to start working for the day, or for the week, I will sit down and make goals of what I need to focus on that week. Because it's really easy to let projects that you love more than others sneak in and steal all your time. And so I'll set goals for myself and remind myself what my priorities are for that week of what I need to do. And then honestly, I still end up usually up against deadlines all the time because I still procrastinate, which is why I have to keep myself very organized, because if I didn't, I would never get anything done. And then it's a lot of late nights and a lot of editing at 2 a.m., which is not the most effective use of time, but you do what you gotta do. So, yes.
May I ask why you chose indie publishing over traditional publishing?
Oh yeah, sure. That is a really, really big question, but with a lot of things to talk about. In fact, I gave a presentation last year about that subject. But the short answer is I like the freedom. I'm not a control freak, but I do like making the artistic decision for my own product, especially because there's so many things that are simply subjective, and what makes a book good or not or bad is very subjective, and just because my editor doesn't like it. I mean, my editor is my employee. They're my contracted employee. I'm their boss, and so I get to choose what I listen to and what I don't. that can get people into trouble. But for me, it works really well. And frankly, I love the business side of things. For me, originally, it was just a tool. And it was just, I looked at it and said, okay, well, this is a way for me to actually get published, because let's face it, getting published traditionally is really hard. And I thought, well, at least I could get my book out there. You can always switch to traditional publishing at any point. It's harder to switch back, because once you've sold your book, it no longer belongs to you. And once the traditional publisher has it, that's it. It's gone, most of the time. And I wanted to try it out, and frankly, I fell in love with it. And it really works for me. It's not for everyone. But I love it, and I have actually gotten really obsessive about marketing and all the financial stuff, and I almost love it as much as I love the creative side too. So, but yeah, it's sorry, that's the short answer. I could go on and on and on. I really, really love indie publishing. Yes.
How much do you generally want to spend on like your cover art, your editor, your proofreaders? Like, how much do you set aside for each book you want to publish, as far as upfront costs that you're investing in your book being successful, aside from the marketing?
Yeah, that's a little tricky question for me, because I actually have a graphic design background, so I do my own covers. But generally speaking, you can get a cover for $100. I wouldn't spend more than $250. But on average, most indie authors spend somewhere between the $100 to $200 range. But honestly, the big important thing is just finding one that's really clear. And simple. Way too many of the pre-made covers or the cheap covers have way too many objects on it and has way too much going on, and it's annoying. Anyway, editors, Fiverr is a great place to look for editors. I spend about $250 to $300 on my editor. But part of it too is I'm at a point where I don't use, say, a story editor as much. I'm mostly looking for copy editing and help with the grammar and typos and all that stuff. I do pay beta readers. Actually, I have a beta reading team that I actually pay because they're more reliable. I used to have non-paid family and friends that I trusted and who could give me good feedback, but they're not reliable, and they can't keep up with my publication. I'm giving them new books every 3 months, and they can't keep up with that. And but yeah, for a beta read, $50. Again, you can find them on Fiverr. I spend about $50 to maybe $100 if someone's really good and I really like their feedback, but mostly about $50. And then I do my own book blurbs on the back, but that can cost you, $100 maybe, depending on. I've tried Fiverr again. I didn't really like a lot of that, but there are professional services out there that you can hire that are, a couple $100. But if you're not comfortable with copywriting, which is a completely different thing than creative writing, I would suggest hiring someone with that. Generally speaking, for me, I'm able to keep my costs pretty low, and I spend no more than, let's see, maybe $600 or $700 at most to get my book out, and it's getting that cost is coming down and down with each book because I'm getting better at doing my own blurbs, doing my own editing. You get better and better with publishing, and so you need to hire out that stuff less and less. Though at the same time, in some ways, I've started thinking about hiring cover designers because as much as I like it, it's time consuming. So yes. And that was about it. No, sorry, I was trailing off anyway at that point.
This doesn't mean like stop.
Yeah.
Under the assumption that you are making meaning in your life, you love what you do, you're enjoying writing. Can you talk numbers specifically about how you make a living writing? Like, are you successful? Can you provide for all your basic needs? And share actual revenue numbers?
Oh, sure. That actually is a great segue into what I wanted to end with, was talking about the dream versus the reality of what indie publishing is. Because even with all my preparation, I knew it wasn't something where I was just going to put up my book and suddenly I was going to be more famous and rich than J.K. Rowling. But at the same time, I remember thinking very seriously that, within a year to 2 years tops, I honestly thought 2 years tops, I was going to be able to quit my job and do this full time. Yeah, silly girl. So 6 months into my career, when I still wasn't selling any books, like my first month I sold about 100 books, 99 of which were to all my family and friends. Then the next month it was maybe 20, then down to 10, and then that first year I averaged only maybe like 3 to 5 books a month. unless I did a promotion, and I would, get maybe 50 books, on 1 month. And I was getting really down on myself because if you do listen to the podcast, you read the books, a lot of them do feature these outlier success stories of people who do just happen to have 1 book out or 2 books out, and suddenly they're, huge successes. And I stumbled across an article that really changed my perspective. And it was an indie author who did a survey of indie authors she knew that were making $100K a year, grossing, I should say. So if they're grossing $100K, that's estimating about $50,000 to $60,000 a year net, what they're actually making, once you take out taxes and expenses and everything. So these are people who could actually be quitting their jobs doing this full time. And she found that on average, they've been in the industry for 3 to 5 years, which definitely gave me a different timeline to work towards than that 1 to 2 years. But on average, they also had 15 to 30 books. Most indie authors, there's very few very huge successes off of a couple books. Most successful indie authors are people you've never heard of because they're really only mid-list. They have a lot of mid-list to low-list novels, books that aren't making that much money. But if you have 15 to 30 of them, suddenly they add up all together and you're making $100K a year. I mean, if you have 30 books, you really only have to have each one of those books making $3,000 to $4,000 a year, and suddenly you're in 6 figures a year. And that honestly is where most indie authors find their success. And that's one of the reasons why I do write 4 books a year. That's why I put them out as fast as possible, because the faster I can get to that 15 to 30 books, the more likely I am to be able to quit my job. Yes?
Yeah, so with putting out 3 to 5 books a year, how many of your readers do you retain, I guess? When you put out a new book, all of the people that read the previous book, what percentage of them buy the next book that you wrote? Or is it new people?
Usually, well, it depends on what your books are. Like, for example, my series, my young adult series is all interconnected, so it's really a trilogy that's, you have to read through the whole thing to get the whole story. And that one has, okay read through, but frankly, my young adult series doesn't do that well. I didn't even bring any this year to bring to the book signing because no one buys them. And you're gonna have books like that. I love them, I think they're great books, but they still don't sell. My adult fantasy books actually have a fairly good read through. On maybe half the people then go on and read, they're standalones. But they're all interconnected. However, what's interesting is actually the 3rd book in the series is a standalone novella that's a retelling of Cinderella. And that actually has gotten me a lot of readers. It's one of my most popular books in the series, and then has actually had a lot of read-through into the other ones. Romance is a little tricky. My romance, I have the most data for my romance novels, but most romance series are standalones, and so romance readers will read one here, one there. They may not read all of them. I don't know. Honestly, it's hard to say. Like, people will tell you what their read-through rates are, and you can't really automatically say that someone who's bought your 2nd book also read your 1st book if they're standalone within a series. I would say I just released the 3rd book in my historical romance series last week, and I would say it's already got a handful of reviews, and every review I've read are people who haven't read the other books. So they then go on to buy the other books, luckily, and I see my other sales then increase. So there is some read-through going through there. So sorry, I can't. That's a hard one to answer. But what was I gonna say? One final thing. we're totally out of time. I do just want to say my last piece of advice for you guys is, honestly, success in the indie publishing industry has less to do with talent and more to do with hard time and work. It really is about just keeping going, keep putting out those books. And if you want to be successful, if you want to be able to be a full-time writer, you just keep writing books, because one of them will take off. At some point you will find an audience. I was not prepared for the success that my romance book has brought. My last year in 2017, 2 years ago, 2017, I only grossed $500 in my sales. In 2018, I published my romance one, and I grossed $14,000 in the next year. That was just unheard of. And honestly, it was just about keep working, keep putting books out there, try new things. You never know what's going to take. And as this book has taken off, my other books have continued to take off. So figure out what works, how much you can give to your writing career while still maintaining your mental and financial sanity. And then just keep going. Take a page out of Dory's book and just keep swimming. Just keep trying because it really is mostly about hard work and just trying and keep it going. Because most of the successful indie authors, it's not their first or second book that takes off. It's their 13th or 14th. Mine, it was the 7th. So you just never know. Also, feel free to visit my website. I've got business cards up here with my email and my website. So feel free to shoot me an email. I do love answering questions. So thank you.